manager of the Microsoft Reactor San Francisco. I will be sharing session resources with you in the chat, but before we begin, I would like to quickly review 2 items with you: our code of conduct and our event guidelines. First, please take a moment to review our code of conduct. Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and our presenters. We do encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. And secondly, our event guidelines. This session is being recorded and will be available on demand through the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. I'll be sharing the link in the chat for our YouTube channel. And let's bring today's session. We're going to have Bob German with Envision Your Application in Microsoft Teams. So, hello, Bob. How's it going?
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. You can take it away.
Great. Well, thanks very much. And thanks everyone for joining this Microsoft Reactor webcast. My name is Bob German, and I am a cloud developer advocate focused on Microsoft Teams development. And most recently have been working on a project called AppCamp, Teams AppCamp. AppCamp is a self-paced workshop where you can learn how to extend applications to become Microsoft Teams applications. The workshop is chock full of videos and hands-on labs for anyone who wants to learn how to build Teams apps using any development stack that you wish. And hello to people out there. It's good to see you. Hi, Nandeep and Aurelian. I probably said it wrong, but hello. Welcome, everybody. So the topic today is Envision Your Application in Microsoft Teams. And we're going to focus a little bit less on the coding this time. So maybe you've attended some of the other sessions. And this time we're going to get more into scenarios, and scenarios that have been shown to actually make a big difference for users. So tons of little mini micro demos today to show you some of these ways that you can streamline people's work or help them to streamline their work. So a little bit of review. Microsoft Teams is an application platform as well as a collaboration tool. And what you may not know is that in the last 2 years, we've seen a factor of 10 growth in the usage of Teams apps. So it's starting to catch on that people like the idea of this collaborative environment where everything comes together, and they're saying, we want more. We want our applications in there as well. So I want to kind of go over some good scenarios for doing this. I mean, in addition to information workers who may live in Teams, and so they kind of got it open all the time, you should also be aware that Teams can be used by frontline workers and mobile workers, where it can be kind of a one-stop shop for somebody who maybe has Teams on their phone, and they can get all their corporate information as well as exposing apps, maybe your app, as well as working with their colleagues and collaborating and managing their shifts and things like that, all through that one application on their phone. So it works out really well that your Teams apps can run, and Teams itself run on desktop and mobile. It helps people to collaborate, share, discuss, and it can streamline business handoffs. So we want to look for scenarios that meet users where they are, which is Teams a lot of the time, and that save steps for them. A quick bit of review on the architecture, just so that this makes sense to everyone. Microsoft Teams, there's 4 different versions of the client. There's the Electron desktop app that works in Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. There is a web-based app, there is an iOS app, and an Android app. And all of those basically bring together the Teams user experience across all of these different services in Microsoft 365. So OneDrive and SharePoint are handling the files, the Office apps are there, OneNote is there, Exchange Online is there handling the calendar and sort of message compliance, if you will. So your app does not run in Teams. Your app runs alongside of Teams, which means that you can host your app anywhere on the internet. As long as that client program can get to your app's services, then it works. And what happens is that Teams, you have to provide this file called a manifest, which is part of the application package that gets put into the Teams store or gets uploaded into Teams. And then that's going to tell Teams, oh, there's a tab, which is really just a web page, and it's over there. Or there's a bot, and it's really just an Azure bot, and it's registered over there. And it kind of brings everything together. Another thing that we're going to touch on a little bit more this time than we have before is the Microsoft Graph. So your application can also get to all those underlying services. And again, I want to focus on ways that that can streamline work for end users. So there's a lot of different capabilities in your app, and or that you could put in your app. These are all the different ways that you could kind of interact with Teams from your app and surface your app inside of Teams. Some of these are handled inside of that app manifest. For instance, tabs, and we have these things called dialogues, which were called task modules. Those are embedded web pages, and the tabs kind of can come up directly from Teams, whereas task modules are going to come up more from your code requesting to show a dialogue. So the URLs of those tabs are in the manifest. Bots and message extensions both use the Azure bot framework. So it's just a nice real-time way to get messages back and forth. And so they have to be declared in the manifest, as well as meeting apps. So these are the kinds of things that would go into your manifest that you would host somewhere. The other features are going to be ones that you access from your code. So things like adaptive cards, and we're going to look at all of these. You're going to see all of them in action. And also the Microsoft Graph REST API, which you would use to access all the backend services, and also opening dialogues, which are really task modules, are really just modal dialogues. And again, you're going to see all of those in these different scenarios. So without further ado, and I'd love your feedback on this, because this is actually the first time presenting this information publicly. I've sort of gathered 5 ways to streamline work for end users, not for us developers, but to streamline work for end users using Teams applications. And I'm going to go through each one and kind of show one or more samples of each one in action, and hopefully kind of inspire some ideas. Because as we go through these, think about your application and how your application might fit into some of these scenarios. So the first one is a handoff with context. So have you ever had somebody ask you to do something, and then you've got to go to another app and look up the topic that they want you to work on, or the thing that they want you to work on, right? That's kind of like extra work, because they have it right in front of them on the screen, right? So what if I could hand something off really and give the full context of what is going on? This demo is actually from AppCamp. So if you do the AppCamp Labs, you get to build this. Here I am. I've checked. Katie is in the warehouse, and I really want to know where. I'm starting to get reports that there's an inventory problem with our chai, with our special tea. So I want Katie to go look at the physical boxes and count them for me, please. And so what I could do is I could just ask her to do that, and then she'd have to go look up, where's the chai in the warehouse? What's it called? What's the SKU? How many are in the computer system? And she would probably mail me or message me back with the inventory, and I would update the system. So that's a lot of that is extra overhead. Watch how we can do this with a message extension inside of Microsoft Teams. So I'm composing my message, and now I can actually look through our products right here inside of, while I'm composing the message. And what comes up is an adaptive card showing the existing stock level and the other information that Katie would need to find this inside the warehouse. Now she can just type in the new stock value and update the system directly, right? So that saved a lot of, that really streamlines the situation compared with, say, going through the whole process of looking it up, and both of us kind of having to go in and out of different applications. To sort of clarify on this, message extensions can run in a few different places. So I showed the compose box that was called a search message extension. You can also put an action there, so just sort of take some action from there. And you can also do actions from the dropdown on every message. So that's number 2 on the chart. So for instance, if your app wants to take a document in and do something with it, maybe you want to analyze it, summarize it, audit it, whatever, send it outside the system, or then maybe somebody would click more actions on a message that had an attached document, and you would take it from there. Or maybe you would look at the text of the document and do something with it. So it's a way, again, of just making it easier rather than having to copy and paste the message or the document. Users can just point to the thing that they want. And then there's the command bar up at the top. And another example, and I'm not sure if I have a demo of this, is link unfurling. Link unfurling is kind of a cool one. We might do a whole lab on this at some point, where it actually will watch if somebody pastes a link into the chat. You can override the default link summary and put your own information in there. And that's a great way to kind of inject deep links into your app as well. So just kind of point that one out. Now, getting back to the regular message extensions, guess what? This is in preview now, but I've left Teams and I'm now in Outlook. And I'm going to use that same message extension again. So I can just go in, and it's the same code, working in both places. And this is kind of the direction we're going in, is trying to unify the system so that you can run your application in other places as well as Teams. And so here's that same adaptive card now, except for we're actually in Outlook, and I can send this message off using Outlook. So there are cases where you'll want to do both and maybe kind of get double duty out of your application. Let's talk for just a minute about adaptive cards. These actually really help with the streamlining of work because you can take action from an adaptive card. And right there, we've got the adaptivecards.io. And you can see here in the chat, if you want to take a look at this, and I'll show it in just a second. Adaptive cards kind of fit a middle ground, if you will. If we were to embed a full HTML web page, like an iframe, first of all, the web server would have to be available forever when somebody goes back to look at that message. Secondly, if I had a bunch of them on the page, it would go really slow, right? We need something much more lightweight than a fully embedded application. And yet we want to be much more flexible than sort of hard coding what it is that we're going to render inside of Teams or Outlook. So that's really where adaptive cards come in. And let me just show you quickly a quick demo of that. Here we are at adaptivecards.io. And if you come here, you'll see a bunch of things, including the documentation. And you know what? We're going to skip right over that and go into go into some samples. And so you can see here kind of how these work. Here's the PM who owns adaptive cards. He appears in the sample, and you can see some of the things you can do here with drop downs and playing around with it. But anyway, here is the data, and here is the adaptive card, and you can see that it's just a JSON. So in your code, what you're going to do is you could either produce the final JSON complete for the card, or you could use an API, an SDK, which will stitch JSON data into a JSON template to make a card like this. So this is usually where I start, is I just start by looking for a sample that's really similar to what I want. And then I just, kind of start adapting it. There's a full designer here as well, so that you can bring a sample into here and then actually change the card, see how it's going to change, drag controls onto the card and things like that. And then ultimately bring it into your code. So pretty cool stuff, and a very core scenario, a very core tool in streamlining applications. So the next thing is the shared view pattern. And it sounds like Greg is thinking that he might actually build one of these. So that's really cool. Let me show you a couple of examples. This first one is a scenario for some people who do a lot of work in the field. It's actually insurance adjusters who are going to go out and inspect properties that have been damaged and things like that. So they're in Microsoft Teams and they're all working together. But now we've given them this app which goes into their calendars using the Microsoft Graph and pulls the field service meetings into view, so I can see what my teammates are up to as well. And now, if I click on one, it's going to bring in all this data. So some of the data is from my app. For instance, the payment data is from my app. Some of the data, also the customer address is from my app. However, I'm also going to show some documents that are tagged for this customer out of SharePoint, some photos that are tagged, and some information also from the cloud, like the weather report and the map, right? The idea is to put the user at the center of it. Think about what would I need if I was going on this field service visit, and then save the user from clicking into 3 different apps or 4 different apps to get that information, and just provide it right there. So this one also introduces the idea of deep linking. So there's this little post channel box where you can post this particular visit into the channel. And so I just did that. Pretend I'm logged in as Katie. I'm not really, but maybe Katie's looking for some help with this engagement. And this right here is a deep link. Now, I could actually use this outside of Teams. I could send this to somebody in an email, and it would open up Teams to this channel as well. But wherever I hit it from, whether I'm in Teams or outside of Teams, it's going to bring me into this tab, and then it's going to pass information of your choice as the app developer into your tab so that you can bring up the exact context. So again, here I am not having to look stuff up. Katie's not saying I have an appointment at 2:30 that I need help with, and then I'm going in and looking up which appointment is it, right? Instead, she already looked it up, so she can pass that context to me in a deep link. Deep links are super powerful, and the documentation is here at aka.ms/deep-link. And you can link to your own tabs inside of Teams, but you can also link to things like chat conversations, Teams channels, calls. You could initiate a phone call with somebody over Teams, and do all these things, scheduling of a meeting. All these things can be done just by crafting the appropriate deep link. So it's a really key way of streamlining the user experience, because you're basically encoding everything to bring the user right where they need to go. Another example, this one's from AppCamp, and I just kind of want to show how configurable tabs work and how tabs work in a shared environment, and how that can also streamline work for users. So here we are in the beverages channel, where I'm working with I'm going to change professions about 20 times during this presentation, I think. We're here in this, we're in the food service business now, and we're going to go ahead and check our stock levels on beverages. So everybody in the channel is now going to go check the stock levels for their products, and all they have to do, because we put this app in Teams, is click the personal apps button, open the personal app, go to products, go to beverages, and there are the stock levels. And you're going to say, hey, wait a minute, how did that save me any time? I actually had to do like 4 or 5 clicks to get there. And I've left the chat. I'm no longer in the conversation, right? If I had a different app or a different web page, I could alt tab and go back and forth between the conversation and this information. So in a way, having it here in a personal tab, well, personal tabs are good for personal information for just one user at a time, right? Here, what I really want is I want to view it in the context of a shared view. So the way to do that is right in the beverages channel, I'm going to add a configurable tab. And that configuration is where we're going to sort of pre-navigate the user. In this case, is a very simple one. We're just going to select a product category. And I've seen much more elaborate forms here. Basically, what you're seeing is an iframe in the middle, and the top and the bottom are Northwind, our teams actually taking information from my manifest and displaying it. And then my code is running in the middle. And what it's going to do is it's going to save the context in the tab. And it's also going to post to the channel about the tab. And there it is now inside of this Teams channel. So if somebody wants to check the inventory levels, it's right there. All you have to do is click the tab, right? And it's super simple. Not only that, but they can also, they're going to get notified of it. But a pro tip here is that they can open up this little chat bubble, and wherever there's a shared tab, you get this chat bubble where you can discuss right inside, right in line. You can discuss the application and what you're sharing. Here's another example. This is an emergency response lab that we used with the Global Developer Bootcamp. This is also available if you want to try it. This is a SharePoint Framework web part that's hosted as a tab, but it's a shared tab. So we can have that chat alongside. What's interesting here is this shows the use of a dialogue. So it's a shared tab, but if I'm adding an item to the map, I don't really want to share the interaction of me putting an item on the map with the whole group. I just want to share the map, right? So in this case, the map points are stored inside of a SharePoint list. And hey, why do extra work? SharePoint has a great UI for managing a list. So since it's just an iframe, all I did here was I pointed the dialogue to the SharePoint list editing page for this list. And it just shows up, right? Now, the user can come in here and add another point. Since we're in Redmond, let's use the reactor on the Redmond campus. And so there it is. And when I close the dialog, it will geocode that location and add it to the map, right? So just another idea, another kind of approach for this whole shared view approach of apps. The next one is to collaborate in meetings. And this is kind of a fun one to kind of show a demo of this. We've got a more extensive video and sample coming out shortly. But to kind of show how this works, I'm actually going to bring you in to one of my actual team meetings with my colleagues in cloud advocacy. So let's see this app actually in use inside of one of our team meetings, where we always used to get confused during Scrum on like who's gonna talk next. So everybody open up the Who's Next app. It should be at the top of your screen.
Yep.
And then just go ahead and add yourself in.
Did I get first? So I automatically go first? Is that how it
Yeah,
works?
you do.
Yes.
You
What?
do.
I need to be slower next time.
Unless we push the if you don't want to be first, then somebody can just push the shuffle button, and it's Robbie.
Oh yeah, sure.
I can
That's
shuffle again because I'm feeling shy now.
It's Gary.
Very formal there. Robbie.
Oh, there we go. And then
adding the surname in.
and then when we're ready for the next speaker, we just click the button and it goes to the next.
Nice.
So-
Awesome.
So this app is using, first of all, it uses Teams. We use Teams Toolkit to get this working really quickly. And then it uses something called the Live Share SDK to synchronize the app. So everybody gets a view of the app in the meeting. And by the way, we're using a sidebar because there's just not that much to show, but you could also take the stage view, which would make your app full screen inside of the meeting. But we're not sharing our screens. We're not sharing a view of the app. We're sharing the app. And in this case, this particular app uses the Live Share SDK and the Fluid framework to share the data, not the screen. So what's going to happen is you'll see Rabia can type her name, and on one instance, she's logged in as two different users here, and it turns off on both instances of the app. She can also go over maybe to the other instance and just click the add button, and it will actually take the username and add Adele in this case. And it's actually going to show up in both apps. So however many people are in the meeting, they can just add themselves very easily here and remove themselves if they have to leave early or anything like that. And that data gets synchronized. So it's a great way to collaborate in meetings and make your app kind of like co-authoring in Word or Excel or PowerPoint. Your app can actually update real-time information so that you can try what-if scenarios. You can brainstorm things. You could build some kind of a canvas that people are going to share and work on collaboratively. So just a ton. I feel like this is such an exciting area because there's a lot more. I think that we're going to see more and more apps end up here. And I think users are really looking for ways, since we spend so much time in these online meetings, to make them more interactive and participatory. And this is really the way to do it. The next way to streamline work is through intelligent agents. So the idea here is, well, bots, okay? And so let me show you two scenarios from the same bot. And we're going to see how we can streamline work for one user at a time, and then how we can streamline it for a group of users. So here I am. I've just walked out of
Today I worked 3 hours on
and
the
I've got my
fourth
phone in
coffee
my hand.
project.
I'm using the voice feature on my phone, and I'm going to bill my time. That's it. One tap, and I'm done. So this is great for mobile workers. Is this kind of a hands-free idea, or also the idea of just if there's an ambiguous situation, right, wanting to allow them to just ask a bot, or maybe ask a quick question of a knowledge base and that kind of thing.
I
This
worked on a
uses a
project.
technique called slot filling. What that means is that in order to actually build a project, we need a certain
Contoso.
amount of information. And anything that we couldn't get from the initial utterance,
The
this
first
uses actually Azure Cognitive Services to analyze what the user said.
3
Anything it
hours.
couldn't get, because I purposely omitted it here, it's going to just ask follow-up
Tuesday.
questions and gather all that information. It's even smart enough to know the date of last Tuesday and figure all that out. And again, the idea is to just make it easy on the user. Don't ask the user to kind of look all this stuff up and log into a separate app. So now here we are in a Teams channel, same bot, but here we are in the project channel where we're actually doing the consulting work. And in a shared environment, you always have to mention the bot. Now, we have something in preview, which is a bot that doesn't have to be mentioned, but typically you have to mention the bot. And there's a couple of reasons. One is privacy, that we encourage this. But the other reason is it's just hard if there's multiple humans and they're talking amongst themselves. How does the bot know when you're talking to it? It would have to analyze everything that anybody said and try to figure out if it should respond or not. And you can imagine that could be a bit annoying. And yeah, some of these demos are repeated from earlier sessions. So I'm just starting to take a look at some of these comments. So in any case, you have to mention it so that the bot knows you're talking to it, right? So here what I want to do is add somebody to a project. And if we did the 20 questions thing here, that would just be really rude because we're in a channel, right? And everybody is going to see their whole screen is going to fill up with that back and forth. So instead of that, we're using an adaptive card. And it turns out there were 2 Alices. So we'll disambiguate that. There were 2 projects for Contoso. And, we got some of the information out of what the user typed, but anything missing is going to go through this adaptive card. And then here's the nice part is at the end, we replace that little form with a confirmation. So think about how many emails would have flown around to do this normally, where you're probably emailing somebody, asking them to add the job to the system, and then they're getting an email back and then having to share that inside of the Teams chat. Here, the whole thing is facilitated by a bot, and the confirmation serves as a notification to the team that Alice will be joining our project. Finally, let's look at the scenario of taking an action in a conversation. So this is an older demo, actually, but I like the way they did this. It is a hiring and HR recruiting demo. And so we're here in the channel where we're doing that. And I'm logged in as Katie. Oops, sorry, I hit the wrong button. Let me try that again. I'm logged in as Katie here. And Katie wants feedback from today's interviewee. Now, her name was Donna, but I can't exactly remember her full name. So we're going to use a message extension again and come in here and look for our current candidate pool. And there's Donna. So that's got our last name correct and all the information. And I just want feedback on this. Notice that the adaptive card has a leave feedback button on it, right? So now I'm back in my car, waiting. I'm not driving and doing this, but I'm in my car waiting for an appointment to start and checking on this person I interviewed. And oh, look, here's an adaptive card. So now instead of logging into the HR system, looking up Donna yet again, and adding my feedback, I can just tap the button and leave a comment right here about Donna. And I'm going to use the microphone on my phone again to do this. And so it looks like Donna's a good fit, and I'll give her my endorsement to hire and submit that. And then I can also view the feedback. And this is where you probably want to make your app responsive. You can see this one is not, but this is just a web page inside of a dialogue viewed on the phone. So I can do the entire feedback process from anywhere without having to look up the candidate again. So that's several different ways of kind of streamlining your application. Now let's take a step back and talk about some of the alternative ways to build a Teams app, and kind of get into that. And then let's see. Oh, so Greg asks to concentrate live view versus the shared view type of apps. The live view, it's really live share SDK. And yes, there aren't enough words in the English language. So live and share and view and, okay, they're all the same things, right? But the reality is that, so the live share SDK could be used in any tab-based app, and it's going to give you access to a lot of sharing functionality, such as, and it's especially useful in Teams meetings, such as monitoring presence, streaming media, and in the case of my sample, using the Fluid framework, which will synchronize the data inside of your app, which is basically JavaScript. So you might have 100 people in the Teams meeting. They've all got the tab open. That means each one has their little browser window open. And we're going to share, live share SDK is going to allow us to get at the presence information, at the media streams, and also at the Fluid framework, so we can synchronize those. The shared view app, honestly, this is the danger of me making a presentation. Let me just confess right now, right? I came up with these 5 categories. There's no official handoff with context or shared view type of app. You're not going to find that in the documentation. These are just patterns. But yeah, the live share is a good question, because the live share capability is available anywhere that people are sharing a Teams tab, the visual part of a Teams application. So there's a bunch of ways to build a Teams app. And I'm just going to show them all really, really quickly. The first one is to use Power Platform. This is really popular right now. But it's really more for inside of a company or an enterprise, because the Power Platform, super powerful, rapid application development, visual development, low code. Power Apps can become tabs very easily, and Power Virtual Agents is a great way to build bots for Teams. The limitation is that it works for one tenant at a time. These are not multi-tenant apps. So if you are doing a one-off for your company, awesome, great tools. If you're building a product to sell, if you're a software vendor, you would have to literally go and recreate your app inside of each customer's location. So I think that, probably doesn't fit most ISV business models. So that's why we end up looking at more pro developer tools, such as the Teams Toolkit. Teams Toolkit will generate an app for you, and we'll deploy it to Azure for you. It's very powerful. And there's the URL for that. This would be my recommended starting point if you're building an app and you want to either use Visual Studio Code with JavaScript or TypeScript, Node.js, or if you want to use Visual Studio 2002 with .NET to build your app. This is a great way to start. Another option is Yo Teams. This is a community written and supported app generator. It actually has a few more features at this point than Teams Toolkit. It's been around longer. It's very stable. There's a lot more examples of it, and it's still being maintained by the community. So that's another great option. And it's sort of compatible, culturally compatible, if you will. It's similar in style in the style of the app to SharePoint Framework. I showed one of my samples was a SharePoint Framework. The nice thing about SharePoint Framework solutions is that they run in SharePoint, so you don't have to host them. However, SharePoint is not going to implement a bot for you, or so some of these scenarios just aren't going to work with SharePoint Framework. But it's a very powerful solution certainly for tabs and dialogues. And then finally, there's AppCamp, which is kind of the tagline today, which is a set of hands-on labs. And this is really about extending an existing app into Teams. So if you already have an app, you don't have to start again with one of those code generators. You can take it, and what AppCamp will do is it'll teach you how to take any app, because really at the end of the day, it's all browser windows with JavaScript, which is mandated by browsers, right? And so that's JavaScript or something that compiles into JavaScript, right? And I guess WebAssembly, but I haven't tried that yet. But in any case, everything is JavaScript SDKs in the tabs and REST APIs for the behind the scenes stuff. So that means you can use any tool chain. You can take any application and add Teams functionality into it. And so in AppCamp, the labs will walk you through. You're given a simple app at the beginning, and you'll learn how to use those SDKs and REST calls, and how to structure things, and how to build a manifest so that your app works in Teams. So it's a bit more work than just clicking a button and having a generator build the app for you. But the advantage is you'll understand it all really deeply, and you'll have the choice of any tool chain, any hosting environment that you want. So let's see, add-ins in the marketplace. I don't have any announcement on that, unfortunately. It's actually, I'm not even aware. I'd love to know what they're going to do with that. So let's see here. I'm gonna keep going and maybe do some of these questions at the end, because I don't want to run out of time as well. So just here's a quick look at the Teams AppCamp. It's aka.ms/app-camp. There's video briefings, including a business briefing to talk about why would you build a Teams app and sell it, and how would you sell it, how would you monetize it. And I think more and more customers are becoming ISVs and starting to actually build apps and sell apps that they use internally to a wider audience and amortize that investment. There's also a technical briefing, and two of them actually, one for the Teams app and one for the monetization. And there's also a ton of videos on every single lab. There's a video walking you through the lab. And then here are all the different labs that you can do. The way that it works is that you start with one of two apps. One has Azure AD already integrated in, the other does not. And so there's an extra step for the one that does not, right? And then at the end, you have a personal tab that uses Azure Active Directory single sign-on. In the last Reactor session, spent some time on Azure AD. So I'm not going to go into it very much right now, but it definitely saves time for Teams users as well as administrators who don't have to juggle a second set of usernames and passwords. And then you're going to have a chance to build and extend that personal tab into, and all the scenarios you're seeing here are these other capabilities, configurable tabs, meeting apps, message extensions, deep links, task modules. Those are the things that really streamline work for users. So I want to do something a little different today than in some of these other Reactor sessions, and focus on the graph. And the reason is because, first of all, your Teams app's going to probably use it. In fact, the AppCamp, we're working on a full end-to-end graph lab, but we're already using the graph inside of the AppCamp code. It's just not something that we spend a lot of time talking about. But graph can also be used to streamline work for users. And that's why I really wanted to put it in this envisioning session. Here's 5 more ways again. I love this 5 thing, but here's 5 different ways that you can streamline work using the Microsoft Graph. And then I'll show you some examples. One is a smart picker. What's a picker? No, it has nothing to do with crop harvesting. We're talking about presenting the user with a list of things. Maybe it's a list of files or a list of other users or a list of available times on the calendar, right? And being smart about it. Have you ever had the experience of editing a document, say in Word or PowerPoint, and then you want to share it with somebody in Teams or Outlook? Well, in the old days, you used to have to search through all of your documents and navigate to that document, even though you were just editing it 5 minutes ago. Now, most of these file pickers are smart enough to say, well, probably he wants to share the document that he just edited 5 minutes ago. Let's put the most recently used document at the top. And we can do that because of the graph, right? Because Word and Teams or Word and your app are different apps. They can't normally share information, but the Microsoft Graph will store this into what are called insights. And I'll show exactly some more that you can do with that in a minute. Calendar integration is another one. Why should the user have to go back and forth between your app and the calendar? Your app could look at their calendar and suggest times that you know they're available. The Teams activity feed and notifications is another place for using the graph. So you can notify users and insert a deep link to your app in context of Teams, right? And now they can go right there and based on something that happened inside of your app, and rather than having to open the app up separately. Real-time presence is another example. So just knowing who's online right now. And then one place for files is just sort of, this is sort of a multifaceted one because so Teams stores its files in OneDrive and SharePoint. And those have a lot of compliance features. Some of our companies, some of our customers in highly regulated industries actually spend a lot of time vetting these features and making sure that they can do e-discovery and document retention and ethical firewalls and all these different things that they want to set up. And so they've already done this. So if your app has another place for documents, not only are you reinventing that wheel, but you're also reinventing all the compliance questions again that customer is going to have, but the compliance is already built in and they've already got a strategy for using it inside of OneDrive and SharePoint. So you can use our file management. We'll pay for the storage, or actually your customer is paying for the storage through their Microsoft 365 subscription. And you're also ticking those compliance checkboxes as configured by each customer. So I'm going to show some examples, and these are from a set of hands-on labs. And you can get to the hands-on labs, let's see, at the Microsoft Graph Learn Lab. So it's ak.ms/learn-graph. And I'm just going to show, a couple of these haven't been posted yet, but most of them are there. I'm just going to show some real quick. These are super basic examples. So they're very bare bones, but just to show the capability. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this one. You can see the code. This one just grabs using the graph that you could see that it wasn't a lot of code either, and just gets my next week's worth of appointments. So you can learn how to get that information inside of your app and do what you will with it. The next example is, I told you they'd be quick, is a file upload and download example. So this is a lot more work to build it yourself. The Teams JavaScript SDK makes it really easy. Sorry, the Graph JavaScript SDK makes it really easy to do this. And so I can upload the file, even if it was a big file, bigger than HTTP can put into one request. It will stream them all up there until the whole file has been received. And then, it's available inside of OneDrive. You now know where that document is, so you can display it on the screen or allow the user to download it. And of course, I chose the Microsoft Graph mascot, which is a giraffe. Another example is File Insights. So this one, I can come in here and see the most recently used files, right? So this is a great opportunity to show these to a user if they're going to pick a file to maybe load into your app or do something relating to your app. Excuse me. I can also see things that have been shared with this user. And I can also see files that are trending around this user. And this is a more of a fuzzy definition, but based on like, these are the files that this user is using a lot. So they've shared them a lot. They've, maybe they've edited them a lot, viewed them a lot. All of these lists are security trimmed. So I'm seeing my own files, so I have access to them, but I can also see other people's files. So let me put in Katie's user ID, and I can see her trending files, but they're security trimmed. So maybe the biggest file that she was actually editing and working on is the Trey Research acquisition, right? Which is super top secret. I don't have permission to it. It's not on my list. So the security actually gets handled by Graph. I can also view her recently used files. However, the Graph team decided it was a step too far to allow you to see what has been shared with a user. So that one, you'll always get an access denied message. And then finally, presence is just like one line of code. What's interesting about this one is we're also looking at the org chart. So it takes the current user, it goes to his or her manager, it goes to his or her direct reports. And so that's what you're seeing here is these 4 users that report to Madeline, who is my manager, and all of our presence information. And if I come in and change my presence information by just going into Teams, you'll see that it will update on the screen. So just a quick way to learn how to bring this information into your app so that you can very quickly get that kind of bring everything that the user needs right into that user experience. So let me just show you quickly another great resource here, which is the adaptive. No, it isn't. It's the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. So the Graph Toolkit is a set of web controls. So this is they're sort of like React components, except for they're and I should have said web components, not controls. Although it's like a control in some environments. Anyway, this uses a control mechanism that's built into every web browser. And I'll just show you, right, what they've done here is they've provided the Office look and feel and the backend data all in one easy package. So this line of HTML is bringing in this calendar, right? This line of HTML is bringing in these files. And you can do fancy things like templating them, localizing them, etc. But it's just a great way to get a lot of functionality into your app very, very quickly, and keep bringing in that context of the graph. So for instance, here's a people picker, right? So I can start typing and sort of filtering and get to the user that I want. So just another great quick tool. So now let's kind of, my last thought here before, and we'll have some more time for questions, is that you probably want to think about selling your app in the Teams App Store. This is something that has been available for not that long, and already it's catching on in a big way. Your app can be purchased and downloaded, so it handles the marketing, the listing of your app, it handles the downloading and installation of your app, and then it also can optionally handle monetizing the app, and you get 97% of the proceeds. So Microsoft handles the financial transactions, takes 3% transaction fee, which is great compared to the industry right now, which often charges 20% or more. And then they send you the money minus the 3% transaction fee. So it's a really great deal. Our partner, we actually commissioned a study with Forrester, and I found that our partners are increasing their deal size. They're also seeing more deals compared to a baseline after doing this, and they're also saying that it's opening new revenue streams for them. So if you build an app and it works great for your existing sales channel, or maybe you're building it for your own use or for a client's use, but you find a way to generalize it, selling it in the Teams App Store can be a great business opportunity for any partner. And kind of really what you want. So users can buy the apps through the App Store, or they can buy them through the admin center, the Teams admin center, or they can buy them through other directions as well. They can come in and use the App Source catalog, which is available to partners that resell our products. What you're seeing here is somebody's making a purchase through the App Store. And so it's completely seamless. They're never leaving Teams. And they can go ahead and place their order, and bang, there's the app. It's going to install for them, and they've already paid for it, as you saw, using their credit card. And so, Priority Matrix is going to get a check. It's that easy. I'm not going to say it's completely easy to set up, because you're really dealing with a whole e-commerce back end from the commercial marketplace, but you would end up needing to build a lot of that stuff anyway, if you didn't have Teams to do it for you, or the commercial marketplace to do it for you. So in summary, here are some thoughts on how to build Teams apps that users will love. Put users at the center. Bring together what the user needs. Think about how they use your app, and think about what other apps and what other information they're going to need in different scenarios, and bring that together to allow them to hand information off, to put the information into conversations and act on it, to have shared views, etc. Always put the user at the center. Secondly, analyze the real world work streams. So talk to real users. My experience is that if some people sit in a conference room and they're product designers and they think they know everything about their product, and they certainly know a lot, but they're often surprised when they talk to real business users and find out how people want to use the product. So it's really good to talk to actual users, organize a pilot group, avoid rigid orchestrations. Don't assume that it's much better to build a flexible type of workflow where users can decide who to send it to and what action to offer to that other user. So you allow them, like that inventory one was a good example where I could have sent that to anybody. I didn't have to have a whole step-by-step workflow. I was able to just do this one step much easier than I could have done it without the Teams app. And then look for missed teamwork opportunities in your app. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to go quite so fast. Anyway, another thing to do is I will eventually get the right slide back. So streamline those frequent work streams, build in intelligence based on the Microsoft Graph and other things. Consider compliance scenarios that some of your users may have to take account of, either in your app or in concert with Microsoft 365. And consider low code. Just because you're going to do multi-tenant and our low code tools are currently single tenant doesn't mean that low code isn't a great idea to customize your app inside of your customer locations. You can, utilize your own connectors for Power Apps, for Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents to access those things. And also, it's a great prototyping tool. So a couple of pointers. Founders Hub, you can get to that at aka.ms/startups. If you want to do a startup and you want some benefits that are going to actually make it easier for you to get your app built and monetized, go to this URL and sign up for the Founders Hub. We also have, if you're a partner already and you have a partner account in Partner Center with a partner ID number, then you can take advantage of this technical pre-sales and deployment services offering at aka.ms/TPD. They will help you plan your business, build your service. They'll give you technical assistance as well as help you to grow your business. So a lot of great offers there. And then I have a whole ton of, this is probably suitable for screen sharing or for a screen capture. All the links I think that were in this presentation. And sort of my call to action is to rewatch this and other AppCamp events at aka.ms/teams_appcamp. So this is actually the fourth one, I think. And some of them have other people, so you don't have to watch me the whole time. And you can get to all those recordings at aka.ms/teams_appcamp. Without the Teams and with a dash, app-camp is the labs. And that's where, the number one place for you to go probably is there to actually do the labs and watch the videos and enjoy that workshop. We've got the Teams ecosystem team, as well as our partner group, have teamed up to provide support. There's a form you can fill in if you want to request support at aka.ms/teams-appcamp/survey. And finally, you can watch us on YouTube, where we're always posting new demos, new samples, and new videos all about Microsoft Teams and graph development at aka.ms/m365 YouTube. So thank you so much. And let me just look and see if there's any, got 5 minutes left, see if I can answer a couple more questions here. So let's see. Add-ins in the marketplace. Yeah, I didn't know that one, unfortunately. So Teams already eats a lot of bandwidth. Building a Teams app would kill the machine performance. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what your app is doing. I mean, that's certainly something that you can control. A lot of the bot and adaptive card stuff runs server side, so it's really not going to affect the footprint on the client side. However, on the client side, you've got web pages running, so obviously you can decide how heavyweight you want those to be. And yeah, in Iowa, it's a crop picker, so we all have some kind of thing like that. So I think I've hit the questions here. Did I miss anybody's question? So Albina, thanks for setting this up, and thanks for the support from the reactor, and everyone who joined. Thanks so much for joining, and watch this space for more videos and live streams and other things all about Microsoft Teams app development. And thanks for joining.